Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. Conservation officers are searching for a coyote that mauled a 9-year-old boy while he was walking home with his 15-year-old sister. The child is now recovering at their home in North Kildonan. CBC's Joanne Roberts has more.
The attack happened right here at the corner of Popco Crescent and Knowles Avenue. Neighbors say it was easy to recognize the coyote. They'd seen it stalking up and down the streets for weeks, even attacking house pets. But no one could have predicted what happened Saturday night. 18-year-old Logan Funk was in his living room when he heard the boy's cry for help.
I looked out the window and I saw him being chased by a coyote.
Many have seen this big animal causing problems in the area. Funk says he rushed outside and scared the coyote off to the next yard as the boy's sister and other neighbors helped him until the ambulance came.
The coyote was still around 20 yards away, and I went out, grabbed a shovel, and chased him down into Popco Bay.
Funk's mother, Susie Gerbrandt, says the coyote has become bolder since she first spotted it and says it isn't afraid of people or scared by loud noises. The neighborhood is on high alert.
I think just having this attack now has really heightened awareness, and it's made us quite afraid.
Constable Jason Mikulishin says coyote sightings around the city are common, but an attack like this is rare.
Typically they, go about their business, but from time to time they can appear very intimidating and in this case very aggressive.
Police are working with Manitoba Conservation to track down the coyote and have the following reminders if you encounter a wild animal. Resist the urge to run, try and make yourself big. If you have clothing like a jacket, raise it over your head. Make as much noise as possible, shout at the animal, or use a safety whistle.
And in most circumstances, the animal's going to bolt.
The family says the boy waited for hours in emergency before getting treated. After getting stitches and staples in his head, he is at home recovering, and the family says they're grateful to neighbors who helped. Joanne Roberts, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The province says once the coyote is found, it'll be destroyed and tested for rabies. The province says it'll bolster the Manitoba Prosecution Service by hiring 25 new Crown attorneys. Justice Minister Kelvin Gertsen says the government will spend more than $3 million to bring the number of provincial crowns to just over 200. Today's announcement is on top of the 6 new crowns hired earlier this year to tackle violent crime. Gertsen hopes the move will address concerns that Crown attorneys are burning out. The government and the Crown Attorneys Association will be in arbitration after Crowns rejected the province's latest contract offer. The association says the fact these positions are being added shows the service is understaffed. Thousands of children are living in Manitoba's child welfare system. The overwhelming majority are Indigenous, and the children often end up being trafficked. That's why the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls called for more protection for kids in care. But as CBC's Mother, Sister, Daughter investigation found, there's been little progress. As CBC's Brittany Greenslade reports, one Manitoba woman says that lack of protection led to her being exploited.
Here is the pretty dress.
High school graduation is an important and special day in a teenager's life.
Very exciting. I love it, and I just can't wait for the ceremony.
Carissa Chaput and her foster mom are putting the final touches on her outfit before she'll walk across the stage.
It's going to be nice to see the full circle.
But for years, Carissa wasn't sure she would survive long enough to see this day.
I thought I was going to be dead. Yeah. Even just my whole life growing up, I thought I was going to die.
The 19-year-old was exploited. She says the abuse started at the age of 5 by her father.
First time, he actually tried killing me, tried stomping on my neck. He would drag me around by my hair, beat me up, just sexual abuse.
She was moved into foster care, but says the abuse never stopped, and she often ran away. She spent an entire year inside this North End home being drugged, trafficked, and sold by others to support their drug habit.
I was exploited, I was abused really, really bad.
Going back to the house where it happened is too hard for her. The memories come flooding back too easily, all on their own.
I was held hostage until I was found by police detectives, until they raided the house for me. And when I was found, I had chlamydia in my eyes from all the stuff that was happening to me. I was really beaten up really bad. I was 92 pounds.
She says child welfare workers gave up on looking for her while she was missing. Chaput could have used the protections laid out in Call for Justice 12.14, designed to protect Indigenous girls and other youth in care. Rachel Willen says the lack of progress is disheartening.
We have a long, long way to go with our national inquiry and all the recommendations that 231 calls to justice.
Willen is a social worker and took Chaput in as her foster child not long after she was rescued.
I didn't want to have somebody on my watch overdosing, getting murdered, being found in dumpsters.
Winnipeg Police Sergeant Andrea Scott says there's a strong link between missing and trafficked children, and too often the child welfare system is a root problem.
Manitoba has the highest number of kids in care, so that puts us behind to begin with.
According to the Canadian Women's Foundation, runaways are often picked up by traffickers in the first 24 to 48 hours. Scott says in just the first 3 months of this year, 40 missing persons cases in Winnipeg have become exploitation files.
I think Manitoba is greater at risk for exploitation of that because of the vulnerabilities of our youth.
Joyce Smith has worked with victims as young as 4 years old. Her foundation has helped more than 7,000 Canadians who've been trafficked.
It happens less than a kilometer from where people live. And even in the rural areas, it's not only the city of Winnipeg, it's all over Manitoba.
Smith says roughly 70% of victims trafficked in Manitoba are Indigenous, and too many have ties to CFS. She says too often these children are falling through the cracks.
There has to be accountability with CFS, where there's outside people coming in to examine what is the home situation, how are things going, and that really doesn't happen the way it should happen. There's also a lack of scrutiny.
It's what Chaput says happened to her, but now she's on the other side. And thanks to Willen, she plans to go into social work to make sure others don't go through what she did. Brittany Greenslade, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's Families Minister says the province is overhauling the child welfare system. Squire says changes include making sure every child over 12 has an individualized care plan in case they go missing. She says the province has also established mandatory training for all departmental workers to help them spot when a child is being abused or exploited.
Will know how to intervene. So that training is just coming online now, and to ensure that that extra level of training is in place so that when our workers go out and do these checks on the kids, do these checks on the homes, they are able to spot and identify something that is amiss.
A mourning father is raising awareness about the fentanyl crisis. Joseph Four led a walk yesterday called "No Thanks, I'm Good." It went from the Forks to the Manitoba Legislative Building. Four says his child Harlan died from fentanyl poisoning. RCMP say they were told the 31-year-old took an illegal drug, possibly ecstasy, and they believe it was laced with an opioid. Four says his son would often say, "No thanks, I'm good," when offered drugs. He wants people to know the dangers of fentanyl and that it can be present in drugs even without you knowing it.
He knew the dangers of opioids. I'm in recovery. I'm 4 years in recovery from a heroin addiction. You know, he drove across the country to go pick up his dad so that his dad could come into treatment in Manitoba. You know, he picked me up off the train the very last time that I came home. And the first thing that he said was, "You got this, Dad. We'll do this as a family. You got this." So I know in my heart that if he knew that he was taking an opioid that night, he would have said, "No thanks, I'm good."
Harlan Four was one of 6 people who overdosed last April in the Pas. From policing to politics, Brandon's newly retired police chief is seeking the PC nomination for Brandon West for the upcoming provincial election. Wayne Balkane just retired last week after 33 years with the Brandon Police, the last 6 as chief. He says he's worked closely with the Tories as police chief and approves of the government's approach to fighting crime. Balkane says he wants to extend his career in the public service.
This works very well for my future plans. So, I can make a difference, whether it was locally here as the police, with the police service, or now I'm hoping to do the same as a member of the PC party.
Former executive director of the Riverbank Discovery Center, James Montgomery, is also seeking the nomination. The current PC MLA, Reg Helwer, is retiring. A new report calls for more security and more staff to uphold safety at the Millennium Library. It comes in the wake of the death of Tyreek Hayer. The 28-year-old was stabbed in the library last December. The report recommends more community safety hosts, security staff, and training at a cost of $2.4 million a year. Millennium Library's Community Connections program links vulnerable patients with social supports, but it's been closed since the homicide. The committee votes on the report later this week. The Manitoba Islamic Association welcomed people to the Grand Mosque to celebrate a few days ahead of al-Adha. Saturday's carnival was a day of friends, feasts, and fun.
Islam has 2 celebrations, essentially. Both are called Eid, so there's no confusion. Eid means festival or celebration, and this Eid is special because it's the festival of sacrifice. It's called al-Adha, where it's the pilgrimage in Mecca where you go, but then we also celebrate Eid right here, right?
It's a very good thing because it gathers like everyone together, and everyone just gets to celebrate their kind of only events, the only 2 events for Muslims together, and it only includes like Muslims and non-Muslims too. So everyone's get to gather together and like have fun and enjoy.
This Eid Carnival is annual. It started like way back when. We even had some in the 90s, but it's been regular now. So we have hay rides, we have bouncy castles, we have the Amazing Race, like, the TV show. We have a minute to win it, we have food, and to culminate it all, the crown glory is the fireworks at the end of it. Invite all our neighbors to come every year. They love it. We've even had neighbors have barbecues at their house and then watch the fireworks.
I really like the fact that there's other ethnics that's coming here and getting to know one another, and it's good for the children as well. It's a great cause.
It's important because it's a community gathering, right? Islam is very big on community and helping out and making sure that everybody gets to celebrate.
CBC meteorologist John Sauter joins us now in studio. John, you're tracking some severe weather.
Yeah, we have severe thunderstorm warnings and we have a tornado warning in the west right now. Let's get right to the maps and I'll show you where the rain is moving. Again, it's in that Riding Mountain area and just south of Dauphin. Those storms moved through Dauphin earlier and now sliding a little bit farther to the south. So there's a couple of clusters of storms here. Some of this still back in Saskatchewan, moving into the Manitoba border area, and we have some to the south. So what I want to do first is zoom in on this area that has the severe thunderstorm watch. That's the larger shaded area. The yellow is the severe thunderstorm warning. That's that line of storms that is moving southeasterly at around 15 kilometers per hour. And now right along this highway here, this is, I believe, Highway 5, right around the McCreary area, which would be right there. That's where this storm is possibly producing a tornado. Doppler radar has picked up some rotation underneath that storm. So far as I know, we have not spotted a tornado, but there could be rotation under that storm, which is now sliding south of McCreary and moving in a southeasterly direction. So all of this is moving into areas like the southern Interlake, northern Red River Valley for later on this evening and on into tomorrow. And then, you start to focus on those larger areas and you may miss some of these little isolated storms that are building in strength. And this is moving just between Carman and Winkler and Morden. So it's moving toward Highway 3 in that area and moving straight easterly. So we're seeing lots of development in certain areas. Right now in Winnipeg, we're down a degree from our high today. We're at 25. We did reach 26 earlier this afternoon, and it's pretty quiet here. You'd never know there's these storms raging to the west here in the Winnipeg area, but I am expecting some of that to weaken as we head into the late evening hours and then pick up again as we head into the overnight and on into tomorrow morning. Have a look at what happens on Tuesday morning. Right around the Red River Valley and areas up around the lake regions and to the west of us, we've got a few of these isolated showers, possibly a storm in the morning hours on Tuesday, and then we start to clear up a little bit, but there's more out to the west. So this is 4:30 in the afternoon, and you can see southeastern Manitoba, northwestern Ontario starting to see the showers and storms, while we'll see sunshine here and up into the Interlake. And then this starts to move through our region on into the late evening hours. Then Wednesday, we start with sunshine once again, and we end up with some very isolated showers late afternoon and on into the evening hours, and it's a little more organized out into northwestern Ontario around supper time on Wednesday. After that, we get another day on Thursday with more showers that are likely to roll into the area, and it'll be a little bit quieter storm-wise, but we'll likely see some more showers. By the time we get to 7 p.m. Tuesday, we've got a little bit of rain out to the west, a little bit out to the east. These numbers have been changing as new forecast model data comes in, so we'll recheck those again tomorrow. 16 is the low tonight. We've got a chance of an evening shower or storm here, and then a chance of showers again in the morning, but mainly sunny in the afternoon, a high of 26, and a chance of an evening shower. If you follow me on Facebook, you'll get your full Manitoba forecast for tomorrow. I'll have your 7-day forecast in just a little bit toward the end of the show. Now, tonight we have, unfortunately, some sad news to share with you. Many of you may remember Murray Parker, a longtime CBC broadcaster and weather presenter.
He's being remembered for his pursuit of adventure and his love for his family. Murray started working at CBC in the mid-1960s. He was a weather presenter on CBC Winnipeg's 24 Hours television news shows, a game show host for trivia, and an announcer for Reach for the Top. The veteran broadcaster died June 9th in Winnipeg. He was 86. Parker is survived by his partner, Arvell Gray, who's also a former CBC journalist, as well as his sons, Jeff, Kelly, and Mike, and their families. Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke publicly today. He condemned the short-lived armed insurrection launched on Saturday by the leader of the Wagner mercenary group. The paramilitary fighters marched within a few hundred kilometers of Moscow. Putin thanked the country for showing unity and the Wagner fighters for avoiding bloodshed.
Дорогие друзья, сегодня еще раз.
The Russian leader said all necessary measures had been taken to protect the country and to protect the Russian people from rebellion. Putin said he'd honor his promise for Wagner fighters to relocate to Belarus if they wished, or to sign a contract with the Russian army, or simply to return to their families. He made no mention of Wagner's chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin. The situation in Russia and Ukraine is a key topic for leaders of Nordic countries meeting for 2 days in Iceland. The sessions come 2 weeks before a NATO summit in Lithuania. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he and fellow leaders agree that Saturday's armed insurrection in Russia is an internal matter.
We are watching, of course, and we are reflecting carefully on what the implications could be either in Ukraine or elsewhere along Eastern Europe, including in Latvia, where Canadians are stationed right now. But we also know that this is something that the Russians will be dealing with over the coming days.
Trudeau says it's too early to tell what it could mean for the war in Ukraine. He says leaders discuss possible challenges and consequences for their own security and for global stability. A CBC investigation has uncovered a little-known discrepancy in the application of Canadian law when it comes to historical sexual assaults. For years, men in positions of power who abused boys have faced charges such as indecent assault and gross indecency, but some lawyers say men who abused girls are less likely to face those same charges. As CBC's Felice Chin reports, the difference is especially stark in a case involving a teacher who worked at 7 different schools around Toronto.
Leslie McMillan still remembers the night she dragged her grade 11 friend out of their music teacher's hotel room. It was 1987, and the girls were on a school band trip in Montreal.
I walk in the room, and there she's lying on his bed, like on her back, like totally passed out, pants undone.
It took decades for that girl, Allie, now 53, to report what she believes was sexual exploitation and sexual assault. In November, she went to York Regional Police. A detective interviewed her.
He called me the very next day and followed up with an email saying that he'd spoken to the Crown attorney, who said there were no charges that applied in my case. And so
CBC has agreed to withhold her last name as she continues to pursue justice. But our investigation has found that 3 women have independently gone to police to file complaints against William Douglas Walker. Jeannie McKay went to police in 1999, then Anne-Marie Robinson, 2017.
And yet there's been no real investigation.
A suspect can only be charged with what was in the criminal code at the time of the alleged offense. And sexual exploitation, a charge commonly used against teachers and others in positions of power, didn't become law until 1988.
The inconsistency between
Blair Crew has for years provided independent legal advice to survivors of sexual assault. He says police could have pursued other charges that were in the law books at the time, specifically gross indecency.
people that were boy victims do make out better in the process than women survivors do. Looking back in the laws in the 1980s, the laws were still very, very homophobic in their orientation.
Our investigation has now linked Walker to 15 women who claimed he propositioned, groomed, or sexually assaulted them when they were teens. To date, Walker has never been convicted of any crime. He maintains the sexual contact he had with students were all consensual. Felice Chin, CBC News, Ottawa.
For more on this story, check out CBC's latest investigative podcast, The Band Teacher. You can download it on the CBC Listen app or wherever you find your podcasts. Still ahead, John Sauter's back with a 7-day forecast. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News.
Another look at radar and lightning tracking this severe thunderstorm cluster right here, and still a tornado warning for a storm that is moving southeasterly and right now right along Highway 5 just south of McCreary. Here is your long-range forecast. In the next few days, we're going to have some showers in and out of the forecast right through to Thursday. They'll be hit and miss in most cases, especially on Wednesday, and then very stable weather and warmer weather as we head into the July long weekend. A kayaker near Australia's famed Bondi Beach was recently treated to a rare sight.
Here's your daily lift.
Wowee. He's right next to you.
Epic drone footage captured this weekend shows the paddler with one of Earth's largest mammals, a humpback whale. The curious creature cruised alongside the kayak in a playful swim through the pristine blue waters of Australia's Gold Coast. The whale is one of 50,000 expected in the Humpback Highway migration from Antarctica.
That was close.